Hey cookie creators and lovers alike, I'm Gabby, and today on the Cool Cookie Show, we're decorating some cute sea creatures. Who doesn't like a cute little sea creature? Today we'll be using two circular cookies, one for a crab, one for an octopus, and we'll also be using a star for a starfish. Let's start with our starfish. For our piping consistency icing, I'm using a number 1 Ateco tip, and with our 10-second consistency flooding icing, I'm just using a regular squeeze bottle. Now with a sharp tool or a toothpick, let's go in and fill in all the empty spaces and pop any air bubbles. To give these sea creatures a little bit of character, let's go in and add some eyeballs. These eyeballs are easy enough to make using some flooding icing and white and black. Or if you want to save time, you can pick them up at a Michael's, or most bulk food stores will have them in the cookie section. Now we'll let our starfish dry overnight before we go in and add a little bit more detail. That way we won't crack the surface of our flooded icing and wreck all of our hard work. For this step, we'll only need our 10-second consistency flooding icing. In order to make the little bumps on each arm of the starfish, plot 4 dots on each arm, starting larger and getting smaller as you go. Now we'll let our star friend dry for another 6 hours before we go in and pipe. Now we'll finish him up by accenting his dots and giving him a little mouth. Now our starfish is ready to shine. For our octopus and our crab, I am going to freehand my 10-second flooding consistency icing with a number 2 Wilton tip. If you're uncomfortable flooding directly, you can always pipe your image right onto the cookie first prior to flooding. And if you want a little bit more guidance, you can also use a food coloring marker. So I'm going to start by doing his head and only 4 of his legs. Alright, looks like a good start to me. Now let's let this guy dry for about 6 to 12 hours before we move in with the rest of the flooding. Now that the body and the first half of the legs are dry, let's go in and pipe in the second half. And while we have our piping bag handy, let's go in and give this guy some eyeballs. Now let's let this guy sit for another 6 to 12 hours before we finish his piping. Now for our crab. Let's start with the body, similar to a football shape. Now we're going to go in and make some crab claws. Then we would connect the claw to the body using a dotted arm, as well as the same effect for the leg. In this case, we're going to start off with every other dot in order to make sure it has a profound standout look. It's coming together. Now let's let this guy dry for another 6 to 12 hours. Now that the first level of icing is dry, let's go in and connect the dots in order to build this guy's limbs. Now we'll let our crab fully dry for another 6 to 12 hours before we go in and complete all the piping detail. Now let's give this little crab some eyes. And don't forget a little smile. For our 2 circular characters, let's go in and flood in some white bubbles with some blue accents. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the Cool Cookie Show. If you liked this episode, give it a big thumbs up. Want to be a part of the creativity? Let me know what characters and shapes you'd like to see in the comments below. For more of my cookie creations, check out my channel, tune in every Tuesday, and don't forget to subscribe. Till next time, stay sweet!